gosh, look at this. Oh, that's awesome. Out here over 40 feet of water. And the only thing these bass right here are relating to are shad. And there's no contour lines, there's no grass clumps, there's no boulders. The only thing they're relating to is shad. The only way to see the shad is by pointing your live beam straight ahead. Look at all these bass right here, guys. You don't just find this, like you use your eye. Oh yeah, that was cool. Oh man, that's awesome. Not a contour line in sight, guys, but we're seeing every single one of these fish. You could count them in the school. I was running down the lake here and I saw just a little bit of a splash. I go, well, it's late in the season, the water's warm. Are those schooling fish? And I go over here, not a contour line in sight, just a straight flat bottom, and I shine my live over there and like, look at all these fish suspended out in the abyss. And I know this situation happens all over the country where these bass, whether it be smallmouth, largemouth, or spots, they just relate to bait, just big open water. And unfortunately, you can't really graph that, you can't really pattern that. The only way to see these fish and know where to cast is A, if they're busting on the surface, real obvious, or B, you shine your live beam out there and find out exactly which angle to cast your topwater, your jerk bait. As you can see right back here, I'm at about a 7 o'clock position. These fish are right there. I know where to cast, exactly where to cast back here. And like I said, with no contour lines or anything to reference, you know, where fish would be hanging out or relating to structure-wise, the only way to figure out where these fish are, if they're not busting, is by using 360 and live. And oh my gosh, look at all of them. Look at all these bass right here. This is so cool being out here, big open water, 40 feet. This is a lot of fun. There's probably only a couple weeks out of the year where the fish get like this. I know what happens on your lake, but how do you stay on top of them? That's the big question. They may come up and boil and bust, you catch a few, but how do you stay on top of them? And that answer's right here. Keep that Ultrex head panning and moving around. It tells you exactly where they are. They may show up on 360 every now and then, but boy, with this water temperature being, you know, real high like it is, slight chop, I mean, that is just a recipe for, they're almost acting like sharks, like an oceanic fish, where they're just moving all around. And this is about the only time I'm gonna set my Mega Live to extend past about 80 feet or so. What I mean by that is when I set it to 80 feet, I know that's about a medium to medium long cast, to my casting ability. You know, 80 feet, that's a long cast for me. But here in this kind of situation, big open water, schooling type fish, not relating to any one piece of cover, they're only relating to bait. What I'm gonna do here on my live screen, I'm gonna take my down range and move it down. We're in 40 feet of water, so I'm gonna move my down range down to about 50 or so. And with that, I'm gonna take my forward range and my normal 80 feet, I'm gonna go ahead, let's go ahead and extend this out to 100, 120 feet. That's within trolling range. With my Ultrex motor on 8 to 10, that's within trolling range. If I see one way out there, 100 feet or so out to the front, I could just cruise over there on 10 and really, you know, get after them because it happens real quick. So let's just keep scanning around here and see what we could come up with. You know, these schooling type spots late in the year, a lot of times it's just long slopey points, long slopey flats that meet deeper water. As I'm sitting here in 30 to 40 feet, I'm real close to the dam of this lake. So we know typically when you're within sight of the dam on a lake, you're within sight of the deepest water of the lake you're fishing. So I'm within sight of the dam here. I've got a long sloping point. As I was driving by, I just saw a little blip of some schooling activity. But when I got here, you know, they weren't schooling anymore. As soon as I jumped the trolling motor in the water, that live technology, I was able to see how far out the fish were, how deep they were. You know, I was able to decipher whether it's a ball of shad or a ball of largemouth And as soon as I got here, man, there was largemouth all over the place. But what's neat is, see how I have my Ultrex pointed back behind the boat towards my motor? Those fish are only 10, 15 feet back behind. That tells me they're literally right under the boat. I mean, 10, 15 feet back, that's about my console area. So that's where they're at, and they're relating to the shade out here in open water. That is such a cool perspective to see and to find when normally we're just beating the bank down there. I mean, that is just so cool. And I've ran through, you know, different styles, flukes, you know, traps, crankbaits, swim baits, jerk baits, top water. It's amazing that when your live screen is this lit up, how, you know, just how picky they could be. But one thing's for sure, you won't even have the opportunity to throw any of those lures at them unless you see them. And simply, if they're not busting and if they're not on your live screen, I mean, obviously you're not gonna catch them, but you have to track them and stay on top of them. Check this out, bait fish, that is all shad. And then I pan left, all bass. Pan right, shad, 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 and look at all those bass inside of that school of shad. That is amazing. See how the dots get smaller? That's all shad. Look at the shad moving. Shad's moving, shad's moving. Big, all these bass are going towards it. That is amazing. And just for a little bit of perspective, this school is about the size of 3 bass boats right here. So look at all hundreds of bass chasing balls of shad late in the season like this. This is just awesome. I think I've learned more about schooling fish in the last 45 minutes than I have in my whole fishing career. And you know what this does is, just looking down at this live screen here, it's really more, it's not about like presentation, you know, and capitalizing on the walking bait or the popping bait or the jerk bait. It's not about that. It's really more about learning the attitude of the fish, like what is going on right now. Like we're just looking, okay, so right here, these are all bass right here. And when they start forming these weird kind of shapes, it means they're actually attacking things on the surface. So it's not really about making that perfect presentation. It's really just kind of understanding what their mood is and what their intentions are in that given moment right here. So just by us staying on top of this school of schooling bass, you're able to learn what their attitude is and just how they act to the bait fish that roll in. So man, that is just such a useful tool. And like I said, I've learned more about schooling bass and just watching them is absolutely amazing. And they're not really surfacing. They're not really busting the surface. I'm just following them with my trolling motor here, and just the way they're acting and staying 15 feet or less and just cruising around almost in a neutral manner until the bait fish kind of collide with them. And that's really when it starts to go off. So literally, I'm just watching them. It's almost useless to make a cast out there until the bait fish come, and that's when it is game on. And here's the other thing about this beam on this Mega Live right here. I could actually see my top water, and we were just staying within 50 feet of these fish the whole time. And watching these things is absolutely amazing. Yeah, little guys. Oh, that's so much fun. We've stayed on top of this school for the last 30 to 40 minutes, man. And we've watched the shad come in and watched them crash shad. They're very, very picky, but we were able to stay on top of them. I got 2. I just had 2 on. We're able to stay on top. Look at this. Look. Look at that one. It's trying to eat it. It's trying to eat that popper. This is by far one of the coolest things I've ever seen in a transition time of year. Watching them on live, I mean, look at, they're literally 10 feet in front of the boat right now. Really, really cool having the ability to stay on top of these fish out in open water. 20, 30, 40 feet of water. That's a lot of fun.